This morning we are starting a brand new series. No more no stuff. We're moving on from that, and we are starting a brand new sermon series. And it's called Rooted. And I'm excited about this one. Well, I'm excited about all of them, but I love this one because we're going through the book of James. And as we go through the book of James, we're not going, like if you've been to our Wednesday night Bible study, we're not going verse by verse by verse. We're going to highlight some of the big stuff in the book of James. So that's what we're going to be doing over the next 5 weeks or so. Now, if you've never read the book of James, James is a great book. They're all great books, but James is really good. James is a practical book of Christian faith and how we should have faith in God and a lot of practical stuff in there. So we're going to look at that. Now, I just want to give you a little background on the author of the book of James. First things first, that's right. His name is James. So let's get that out of the way. James is the half-brother of Jesus. Now, just pause there for a second. Jesus had siblings. James was his half-brother. How many of you have an older sibling? You guys have older siblings? If you have older siblings, I'm sure at some point in time you have heard, why can't you be more like so-and-so, right? I've heard it. Can you imagine being James? With Jesus as your brother? How many times do you think James heard that growing up? You know what, James, why can't you be more like Jesus? Well, Mom, I'm not God. But the funny thing is, not funny, but the interesting thing is, James didn't even believe his brother was the Messiah. James, growing up, he had meals with them. He watched Jesus teach. He heard him speak. And James and their other siblings just thought Jesus was crazy. I mean, they openly mocked him. In John chapter 7, verse 5, we see, for even his brothers didn't believe in him. James did not believe that his brother was the Messiah. He thought he was some crazy guy. What are you talking about, Jesus? Yeah, that's my older brother, Jesus. He did not believe. In fact, it wasn't until after the resurrection that James finally got it. Wow, maybe my brother isn't crazy after all. Maybe my brother is who he says he is. And some short time after that, James became a leader in the church. And then James writes this letter to Jewish Christians, which is entitled James. And this is where we're at. Now, it kind of gives a little bit of background information on who James is. He's writing to Jewish believers. Again, the brother of Jesus, didn't believe in him. Finally, after the resurrection, he's like, maybe he is. And then he writes this letter to Jewish Christians. So this morning, we're going to go ahead and we're going to start by just reading the first few verses in James chapter 1. James chapter 1, we're going to look at verses 2 and 3. James writes this. Consider it a great joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you experience various trials, because you know that the testing of your faith produces endurance. Now, before we even get into this, I want to back up one verse. I want to look at verse 1 for me, because this is interesting, and this is probably something that we overlook. Because now you know a little bit of background on James. This is interesting. It says, James, a bondservant of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ. All right, James, remember, he did not believe who his brother was. He thought his brother was crazy. After the resurrection, he believes. Now he's saying, I'm a bondservant. I'm a slave to the Lord Jesus Christ. It kind of shows you the change in James, right? As he became a leader of the church and writes this letter. But then he writes, consider it all joy when you go through various trials, when you experience various trials, because you know that the testing of your faith produces endurance. The first thing I want to look at is in this passage is that James is ultimately saying, have joy in trials. Really? See, when I first look at those two words, joy and trials, that's an oxymoron to me. Those are two words that, in our mind, should not go together. You know, like jumbo shrimp. Act naturally. Think about that for a second. What else did I have here? Oh, this was funny. Passive aggressive. Think about that. No, like passive aggressive. And this one makes me chuckle every time. I don't know why. Definitely maybe. You tell somebody, definitely maybe, we'll do that. Like these are, and there's so many other words that when you think about shouldn't go together. But joy and trials being one of them. We don't associate joy and trials. So James is telling the Jewish leaders and the Jewish Christians, he's telling us to have joy in trials. What does that look like? What does it look like to have that? And what does he mean? How's that possible? Well, the first thing we have to understand is there's a big difference between happiness and joy. Okay? Between happiness and joy. Happiness is based on our circumstances. If good things are happening, we're happy. Pass a test, get a job, the medical report came back good, things are going well with your family. Whatever positive thing you can think of, as long as things are going good, I'm happy. As soon as something bad happens, lose a job, bad report, whatever the case is, we are unhappy. And our happiness is a roller coaster ride. It changes so quickly. Have you ever noticed that one second you're like, this is the greatest day, oh my word, what's happening? And all of a sudden before you know it, you go from being on the mountain, you're happy, then you're not happy anymore. Oh, then I'm happy again. I'm not happy anymore. So what James is saying, he's like, when we go through trials, James is not saying, woo-hoo, another trial. This was a real humdinger, hey, let's do this. He's not saying like, yes, let's have a party, yes, another trial, I can't wait, it's going to be terrible. That's not what James is saying. That's why he says, be joyful and not be happy. When we go through trials, when we go through burdens, when we go through those storms, we hate them. Right? Or am I the only one? We hate going through trials. We hate suffering. We hate watching other people suffer. Again, that's why James says, not to be happy, but to be joyful. Have joy when you go through these trials. So this is starting to uncover itself a little bit. So what is joy then? If happiness is based on circumstance, and James says don't be happy, what is joy? Joy is the opposite. Happiness, again, is based on things that are happening in our circumstances in our lives right now. Joy is based on Christ. Joy is based solely on who Christ is. Pure joy is found in the person of Jesus Christ and what he's done and our realization that time and time again, God comes through. Time and time again that God keeps his word. Time and time again that God keeps his promises. Not that we have to understand everything or like what we're going through, but our eyes are fixated not on our circumstance, not on our problem, not what's right in front of us, but our eyes are fixated above. They're fixated on Christ. They're fixated on the cross. They're fixated on the empty tomb. They're fixated on hope. That's what we're looking at. That's what James is saying. Trusting God through those storms, trusting God through those things where we don't understand, trusting God through those trials that ultimately bring joy, that takes faith. And what's faith? You know you were getting a vocabulary lesson today. What is faith? Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1. Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for and the conviction of things not seen. See, faith brings those things that we can't see or understand, and brings them into view. We walk by faith, not by sight. What does that mean? It means I don't have to know where I'm going, I'm just going to go. Because who knows where I'm going? God. He's directing, he's leading. I don't have to know the answers. I don't have to understand it. I'm walking by faith that this is what I'm doing. I'm not even going to think about it. I'm going to have faith. How many of you, when you came into church today, before you sat down in your pew, made sure it was stable? How many of you checked it to make sure when you sat on it, it wasn't just going to break? I'm going to assume not any of you. Right? Keep your hand down. No. Or anytime you sit on a chair, for the most part, I sat on this chair during the offering. I just sat down. I didn't check the bolts, I didn't check the screws, I didn't check to make sure the legs were weren't gonna give out when I sat down. I trusted that chair was gonna hold me. right? Without thinking about it. And this is what faith is. Faith is saying, God, I'm not even going to think about it. I'm not even going to second guess. I'm not even going to wonder. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to go. I'm just going to do it. And it's going to become second nature. So many times we have more faith in a chair than we do in God. You know, we're not questioning the chair. We're not questioning the person who built the chair. We'll question God. God, I don't understand this. I don't like this. Are you sure, God? Are you sure? We're probably playing double dutch with God, you know. Waiting to jump in. You know, we have to have faith. And faith is ultimately joy in motion. Because not understanding anything, not, you know, as we're going through that trial, not getting it, not understanding it, but God, man, because of who you are and what you've done, God, we're going to walk through this together. Not dwelling on the circumstance, not fixating on the circumstance, but fixating our eyes on God. Now, that's a tall order. That's hard. That is so easy to stand up here and preach. And it's hard to apply, like most things are. Right? It's hard to apply. So how do we do that? How do we not view our circumstances? How do we not stare at our circumstances? How do we not stare at the storms and at the same time taking our eyes off of Jesus? Well, I believe the answer is simple. Again, the application is not always simple, but the answer is simple. It's knowing who God is. It's knowing who He is. Now, we're going to look at a verse, Proverbs 3. I'll look at it from a little different angle because I'm a little weird sometimes and I like to look at things a little differently. So we're going to read this together and then we're going to look at it just a little differently than maybe you're used to. So let's look at it. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. It says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him and He will make your paths straight. So what I like to do when I read this verse, I like to read it backwards. Not like straight paths were made, not that way. I can't do that. But I want to take the point. So if we want to make our path straight, what do we need to do? How do we get to that point where we're trusting in the Lord with all of our heart? The first thing we do is we need to acknowledge Him. We acknowledge who He is. And this is not just, oh, there's a God, I know there's a God. No, this is that intimate love, that intimate knowledge, intimate relationship with God that we've been talking about over and over and over again. Knowing, studying His Word, spending time with Him, knowing how reliable He is, knowing how time and time again He remains faithful through all situations. Looking through the Scriptures and looking how time and time again people were in really bad situations and God time and time again came through. You know, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, the fiery furnace. That did not have a promising outcome until God said, watch what I can do. Right? Daniel in the lion's den. You know, all these stories that we read in Sunday school and kids, these are all God's provision. These are all God taking care of His people. These are all stories and accounts of God, you know, time and time again remaining faithful. So it's knowing who He is, spending that intimate time with Him, acknowledging Him. And then once we can do that, once we know Him intimately, we will learn not to lean on our own understanding of things. Right? Because I won't need to understand it, because I know God's faithful. And if God's faithful and He takes care of the situation, even when I don't know it, I don't have to understand it. I don't have to try to explain it, because God's got it. So no matter what I'm going through, I know who He is, I trust Him, and I don't have to lean on my own understanding anymore. And then once we learn to know Him intimately and not lean on our own understanding, well, then we can trust Him with our whole heart. So you see what I mean? Like I like to read it backwards. Because I believe trusting the Lord with your whole heart, that's where joy is found. That's how we have pure joy in the midst of trials, is by trusting the Lord with our whole heart. That's how it's done. Now, once we surrender our lives to His will, once we say, God, listen, I hate what's going on. I hate this. And I don't think it's bad to tell God that. You know, God, I'm upset. If my kids are upset, I don't have a problem with telling me as long as it's done respectfully. You know, Dad, I don't like this. I understand. But I know why we're doing this. Right? And once we can get to that place where, God, I trust you. God, again, I hate this. I don't understand it. But God, I trust you. We can still have joy because we know who God is, and then we know what Christ did for us. We don't see the circumstance, we see the cross. We don't see the circumstance, we see the tomb. And we can move forward. And as long as we keep our eyes fixated on Jesus in the midst of the storm, we will be fine. We can have joy. But the moment we take our eyes off of Jesus in the midst of the storm, that was singing. I can't let it go far enough. We sink. Remember the account of Peter? Yes? Remember, well, I have to be more specific. There's a lot of accounts of Peter. Peter and the disciples are on the boat in the midst of the storm, and they're like, oh no, it's a ghost! Jesus like, no, it's not a ghost. It's me. Paraphrasing, of course. And Peter, of course, he's always the loud one. Lord, if it's you, let me walk out to you. Okay, Peter, come out. Come on, see him walk towards me. And Peter gets out of the boat. And he's walking on water, and this is a good deal. You know, he's staring at Jesus, and Jesus, this is great. This is, oh my goodness. There's a wave there, and a wave there, one behind. The wind's blowing. He sinks. His eyes are fixated on Jesus. He's walking on water. Everything's fine. The only person not named Jesus to do it. And he's fine. And the moment he looks and realizes, oh my word, I'm walking on the water. There's a storm. That's a wave. And that's a wave. And that's wind I feel. And oh, I'm sinking. And there he goes. And then Jesus walks up to him, pulls him out, and says, you have a little faith, Peter. Now, there's a couple of things I want to point out with Peter in this account. Number one, we give Peter a bad rap for sinking when he was the only one to get out of the boat in the first place. Okay, that's number one. That's why I like Peter. I mean, he speaks a lot, and he's not always right, but man, he's gutsy. He has faith. All right, he sinks. Right, he's in over his head. The storm comes, and he's done. What does Jesus do? Gets him right up. Right? And then, how do you think they got back to the boat? You ever think about that? How do you think they got back to the boat? They walked back to the boat. Peter didn't fly. I don't think Jesus carried him. I think they walked back to the boat together. This is a story, in my mind, this is a story of redemption. This is a story of restoration that tells us that, you know what? You know, when we have faith and keep our eyes fixed on Jesus, even in those moments that we fail and we sink, Jesus is still going to be there to pick us up. And not only pick us up, he's going to still let us walk with him. We are still going to be able to do the impossible. Jesus didn't say, you know what, you're done. No, he walked back to the boat with Peter. And as long as Peter kept his eyes on Jesus, it was fine. We took him off, he sank. On the way back to the boat, when his eyes were fixated back on Jesus, and Jesus was there, guess what? He walked on water again. And no matter what storm we're going through, no matter what trial we're going through, no matter what burdens are coming our way, no matter what things come in our way that we don't understand, is when our eyes are fixated on Jesus and we trust him, and we have faith in him, we can do anything. We can get through anything. Not because of the circumstance, but because of who Jesus is. So now that we know we have to have joy in trials, and he says we can have joy in trials, I guess the next question is, why is this so important? Why is it so important to get to the point where we trust the Lord with all of our heart so that we can have joy in the trials? It's because of what King says next. For you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. Do we have any runners out here? You guys run? Oh, you're my kind of people. Have you run? No runners? Not this service? Well, I love this service. I am not a runner. So no one has run a 5K? Anything? So I'm asking if you run a marathon. What was it, like 20-something miles? My car barely does that. I'm not going to try to run that. Now, if you are, okay, this is perfect. So none of us have run a 5K, right? So we're all in the same, you run a 5K. Okay, that's fine. Because now I can use you as, that's fine. Now, here's the thing. For those of us who have not run a 5K, I'm going to go out on a limb and say the thing that we should not do is just go run a 5K. Right? That would not be good for anybody. That would not look pretty. Especially when I'm doing it. Now, when you run a 5K, you probably go out and you decide one day I'm going to run a 5K. You go out, run about half a mile, cramp a little. All right, I'm going to walk a little. The next time you go out, you knew you could run a half a mile, so maybe next time I'm going to try a mile. You do it. The next time, a mile and a half before you cramp up. The next time you go about 2.5 miles, you fall down, you skin your knee, you get up, and you're like, all right. And each time you go out, you go a little bit further, a little bit further. That's called endurance. You're building up your endurance. Now, every time you go out, you can go a little bit more, because you know you can do it, because you've done it before. Now, Paul is not speaking about he's not talking about a physical race here. Look at 1 Corinthians chapter 9. Because what's he talking about? He says, don't you realize in a race everyone runs, but only one gets the prize. So run to win. All athletes are disciplined in their training. They do it to win a prize that will fade away, but we do it for an eternal prize. Paul's talking about we are running this spiritual race. And in the middle of this race, while we're running, there are going to be obstacles in the way. Trials. Now, if you're thinking like a physical race, those trials, those obstacles, you cramp, you trip. There's things in the way, a pigeon flies, whatever, I don't know. There's all these things coming your way to try to disrupt you running. And we're running this spiritual race, and our prize is not something that is intangible. It's something that's intangible. It's eternity. When we run a physical race, we're running for a prize that's going to fade away, go away forever one day. We are in a spiritual race. And James is saying every time you go through a trial and you allow God to get you to the other side, you're building up your spiritual endurance. And then maybe you've experienced this. I've seen this. Man, that first time that trial comes, this is the end of the world. This is going to be it. God, understand it. God, I don't know what you're going to do. And then God gets to the other side of it. Then another trial comes. And you go back and think, well, last time, God was pretty good on getting me through that. Maybe it wasn't the way I wanted him to. Maybe it wasn't what I expected. It was a tough time. But God was faithful and got me through. So we get through that trial. And then the next trial comes. It's a little bit easier. Not that the trial gets better, but our faith and trusting in God gets easier. The trial is always going to be hard. The trial is never going to be easy. But how we have faith and how we trust in God gets easier as our spiritual endurance starts to build and build and build. And this is why we have to have joy in trials. Because the more joy we have in trials, the more we trust in God, the more we can defeat those obstacles with his power when they come. So we can keep moving forward. So we can keep going on the spiritual journey till we one day get to the finish line, which is eternity with him. Make sense? And this is all what James is saying. So the question I have for you as we kind of start wrapping up this morning is what obstacles, what trials are we currently dealing with? What are some things that are keeping us from running this race and running it effectively? Because I don't know about you, but there's times, when I've tried to go running, and one of the reasons why I don't run now is because I quit. I'm going to run a mile every day. Here I go. And usually that happens around January 2nd. New Year's time. I'm going to run. And by January 5th, I'm like, I'm done running. And we just know this is too hard. I just want to quit. And sometimes we get that way in life. What's ahead of us, that obstacle, that trial, that thing that is staring us right in the face, it's too tough to deal with. It's too hard to deal with. And we just want to wave that white flag and say, God, I give up. I quit. I don't want to go. I can't go anymore. And God says, listen, the only thing I want you to quit is relying on your own strength. Don't quit the race. Don't quit running. Do you ever see sometimes in running where one of the racers, if you ever watch the Olympics, sometimes a runner will fall down. Well, the runner will slow up. A lot of times, more times than not, one of his teammates will come and help him finish the race. When there's those moments in time where you can't finish, you feel so tired, you feel so defeated, that's what we are here for. That's what the church family is here for. That's what accountability partners are for. We take each other, we help each other, we pick each other up, we walk with each other. Just like Jesus took Peter, picked him up out of the water, and said, let's go. You're not done. There's more things I want for you. And we walk together. So what is stopping us this morning from seeing him, from trusting him, from going beyond the looking at the trial, beyond looking at the burden? What is occupying our time? When we can focus on him, as tough as the situation is, we can have that joy. Because this is what Jesus says, and this is the reason, one of the main reasons why we can have joy in trials, and I believe something that we forget often. This is the words of Jesus as we get ready to close. I have told you all of this so that you may have peace in me. Here on earth you will have many trials and sorrow. Do you notice that? You are going to have trials and sorrow. It's going to happen. You can't avoid it. You can't stop it. It's going to happen. On earth you will have many trials and sorrow, but take heart, because I have overcome the world. Where's our trust? Where's our faith? It's in him. It's not easy. It's hard. We rely on each other. We rely on the Spirit. And we remember the words of Jesus. I've already overcome this obstacle. I've already won this battle for you. I already given you the victory. All you need to do is claim it. All you need to do is take it. Let's pray. Father God, I thank you so much for this morning. God, I thank you that, Lord, even as the world looks at trials and hardships, God, and, we hear it all the time, Lord, if God is so loving, why does he allow this? Why does he allow that? But God, we know who you are. And God, even in the midst of what the world sees as awful and destructive, God, in the midst of all of that, God, and even us, God, we don't like going through trials. We don't like to suffer. We don't like to see others suffer. But God, even through the midst of those, God, we can trust you. We can have faith. And we can have joy. And God, that joy is not, again, it's not in the circumstance. It's not in what we are going through. It's in the person, God, who has it all under control. And that's you. Lord, when we keep our eyes fixated on you, no matter how hard it is, no matter how many tears we shed, God, we can still have a smile on our face. God, we can still have joy because of you, who you are. God, no matter what. So God, I pray, Lord, no matter if we sink, God, no matter if we struggle, God, Lord, what we're going through this morning, and whatever that obstacle is, God, is keeping us from running the race and running it effectively. God, I pray, Lord, you would remove that obstacle. Or God, give us the strength to run around it. God, give us accountability partners, give us friends. God, make us a family that says, hey, when you're struggling, you can't go anymore, I'm going to run with you. I'll put an arm around you. I'll hold your hand, but you're not quitting. We're going to go through this together until we reach that finish line. God, I pray, Lord, you would help us to have that perspective. God, that we can have joy in trials. God, we love you and we thank you for everything you have done, are currently doing, and will continue to do in our lives. We love you.